Low carb, high fat diet. Even though they were eating the same amount of calories, their liver fat went down by a third.
Here are 5 reasons that eating whole grain bread is stupid.
Carbohydrates. Do they all cause fatty liver? No, but the types commonly consumed can lead to fatty liver, while those often overlooked actually offer protection. But the number one way to reverse fatty liver, otherwise known as metabolic dysfunction-associated steatotic liver disease, is to get your liver metabolically healthy. And there's actually 3 ways to tackle the problem. Can you believe that 1 in 4 people in America have fatty liver? What surprised me that even in longevity countries like Switzerland here, 25% of their population also have fatty liver, and they live nearly 10 years longer than Americans. Number 1 is to cut out all the refined sugars and starches that you're eating. So that means eating candies, cakes, donuts, ice cream, right? Those are highly refined in sugars as well as starches. Did you know that even your healthiest whole wheat bread, the 3rd ingredient is probably sugar? Check the back of your labels and you'll be so surprised to see that there's sugar in your bread. Now, the worst sugar of all is fructose. And if you think about it, table sugar is half fructose. And this is because your body has a difficult time getting rid of excess amount of fructose. Now, don't be confused with eating fruit, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. And of course, you have to eliminate alcohol, which is essentially a byproduct of sugar fermentation that inhibits your body's ability to process fats, and it promotes fat production in your liver. So this is why alcohol is super bad. The body cannot get rid of alcohol, so it turns it into a more toxic metabolite called acetaldehyde, which inhibit fat oxidation, or the ability of your body to use fat. And at the same time, it promotes fat synthesis, the ability of your body to produce more fat. And hence, people who drink alcohol get fatty liver. Now, the 3rd way to tackle this problem is actually the most powerful way to get rid of your fatty liver. And that is to lose 10% of your current body fat. Now, any diet can achieve this. But if you think about how people get fatty liver, then eliminating the number 1 sources, which is refined sugars, as well as refined starches, can significantly help you achieve this. And this is why people who are on a ketogenic diet or a carnivorous diet or a low carb diet find so much success in reducing their fatty liver. But if it's not the diet that you're willing to do for the rest of your life, the visceral fat will come right back. And what's even worse is that if you don't pick the right diet, then you may be losing fat and you may be losing weight, but you may be getting more insulin resistance. And so that when you quit your diet, the fat comes back with a vengeance. Now, could fatty liver be like prostate cancer, in which people just live with the disease as opposed to die from the disease? Don't get me wrong, there's actually a subset of patients with fatty liver who go on to progress to end-stage fatty liver disease, which is cirrhosis, which can progress to liver cancer. And these people may require a liver transplantation to survive. You're at higher risk of fatty liver if you have high blood pressure, if you smoke, if you have obesity, if you have low thyroid levels, or if you are diabetic. These people also have a higher rate of having high cholesterol, as well as metabolic syndrome. At this point, doctors don't know who's going to progress to getting cirrhosis, hepatocellular cancer, or require liver transplantation to survive. So it's best not to have fatty liver at all. And this is why we all need to get metabolically healthy and help our liver not accumulate fat. And you would think that this is some extreme diet that nobody could do. But in fact, the 7-Day Adventist communities have proven that no matter where you live, that this diet is absolutely a sustainable, lifelong journey. Fatty liver, like most other chronic metabolic conditions, are diseases of lifestyle. Number 1 is diet quality. Number 2 is movement. And the Swiss seem to do a better job at both diet quality and movement than we do in America. So I decided to fly to Switzerland to figure out why the Swiss live so long, and yet 25% of their population also has fatty liver. Maybe their food quality is different, or maybe they're eating different foods. The first thing that I noticed when I arrived was that the Swiss, they don't eat all day long. Their shops actually close early. And in fact, on Sundays, most of their shops are closed. This is sort of forced, time-restricted eating because if you don't have access to the food, then you can't eat it. In fact, when you eat late at night, you have elevated levels of melatonin. Melatonin inhibits insulin to be secreted. When you don't have insulin, you can't metabolize glucose well. So then you have persistently high levels of glucose, which then makes you more insulin resistant and forces your liver to take some of that glucose and store it as fat. So the presence of insulin actually shuts off ketones. That's why if you eat carbohydrates, especially highly refined carbohydrates, you're not going to be in ketosis because the presence of insulin shuts off ketone production. Now, when you eat fat, you actually inhibit the breakdown of your own fat. This is why when you eat carbohydrates with the fat, so let's say a donut or a muffin, you're inhibiting your liver from breaking down the fat in your liver. Hence, if you don't either completely eliminate highly refined carbohydrates, or if you're going to eat that, you have to eat a low-fat diet, you're inhibiting your body's own ability to get rid of that fat in the liver. Unfortunately, people who focus on fixing fatty liver with a wrong diet end up shortening their lifespan. I don't know if you saw the viral TED Talk by a medical doctor who advocated a ketogenic diet to her patients to reverse fatty liver and diabetes, diseases of glucose metabolism. This doctor fortunately died of cancer in her 40s. And that's the problem when you get your diet wrong. You inhibit your body's ability to recover from stresses. Some of you may be confused that I actually said you can eat refined carbohydrates and still improve your fatty liver. So how does that work? Well, number one, I just mentioned that when you eat fat, you're inhibiting your own bodies from utilizing your own fat. So if you get rid of the fat and you stick to like starches, you actually can still lose weight and reverse fatty liver, as well as high blood pressure, as well as a lot of other metabolic problems. And this has been proven by the rice diet. Now, you can't overeat calories. If you overeat calories, you'll just end up making the fat. But if you don't overeat calories, and if you keep your diet very low in fat, that's another way to tackle fatty liver. Now, keeping your diet low in fat means, number one, you can't eat the fat, and number two, you can't make fat. And you make fat by overeating food. So if you don't overeat the starches and refined carbohydrates, and you keep your diet low in fat, that's another way in which you can start breaking down your own fat. Now, that's not the ideal way to do it because highly refined starches and sugars, they're not exactly nutritious, right? They only supply a source of energy as well as glucose to make some structures of your DNA, RNA, as well as ATP, but you're missing a lot of the antioxidant, anti-inflammatory power of whole foods. You're also missing proteins, right? And you need protein in order to make the scaffolding of your entire body. So that is not the ideal way to eat. Now, the second way you may want to try to lose weight is to keep a food diary. And then when you notice and count how many products you're eating with refined sugars, then that actually can trigger some people to intentionally stop eating those products. Now, the third way to cut down highly refined processed sugars, to give yourself some rules to eating. Some people choose to fast. And I'm not a proponent of multiple day fasting, basically because you need more than carbs, proteins, and fats to survive and to thrive. You need vitamins and minerals and micronutrients and phytonutrients that people don't account for that are so vital for your maintenance of your health, as well as to set the foundation of the structure and function of your cells. And some of these vitamins and minerals you actually need to get every day. So when you go on a fasting diet, if you don't do it properly, you can really do damage to your metabolism as well as your immunity. But I understand fasting is very popular. So if you decide to do that, please get together with your physician to know which supplements you should be taking. I choose to do more of a time-restricted eating. That means certain windows of the night I won't eat, and I'll wait until late in the morning. So my fasting interval, which I don't really like to call because it's technically not fasting, I'm just giving my body a break about 10 to 12 hours every day of no food. Now, that may seem quite difficult to do, but if you think about it, if you're sleeping 7 or 8 hours, you only have to not eat a couple hours before you go to sleep and a couple hours after you wake up. So that's what I choose to do. This way, it gives my body a time to rest. It follows my circadian rhythm of digestion. So I front load carbohydrates in the morning because I am more active in the morning. My melatonin levels are going down. I'm more insulin sensitive so that I'll actually have lower blood sugars eating the same carbohydrates carbohydrate during the morning time than I would eating it later on in the day. I also have rules of engagement when I do eat. Number one, I don't eat anything with highly refined sugars. Now, I can't say 100% because I'm not 100% strict, but as a general rule on a daily basis, most days and none, probably like 29 out of 30 days in a month, I will not eat highly refined sugars. Now, sometimes they're hidden in condiments, so that's why I don't eat condiments or sauces, but I will make my food taste sweet. And the way I do that is to use whole food. So I will sweeten a salad with mango juice made from actually a whole mango, right? When you chop up a mango, it's so juicy. So I'm not actually squeezing the juice out on purpose. It just comes out when I cut it. And I simply just mix mango with my salad. Another rule that I follow is that I try to front load my fruits and vegetables first, just like how when you walk into a Swiss shopping center that you'll find fruits and vegetables first. And this is super important because fruits and vegetables are low calorie, low density foods, right? They're full of water. That's why after you eat a salad, you're hungry unless you like overstuff it with calorically dense dressings or foods like cheese. So if I front load low calorie foods first, then I'm protecting my liver because number one, I'm eating fiber, and fiber as a buffer to prevent the quick absorption of simple sugars. Number two, I'm also eating low-calorie food. I'm avoiding the highly refined carbohydrates. And number three, fruits and vegetables just also happen to be low in fat. And the problem is when you're eating fat along with your carbohydrates, the presence of fat actually turns off your own metabolism of fat. And this has been shown for people who were given a ketogenic diet in the old days before insulin actually was invented. So people with type 1 diabetes actually had to be given a ketogenic diet to just survive because the presence of carbohydrates actually made them make more ketones and break more of their own fat. This is because they couldn't digest the carbohydrates they were eating because they didn't make any insulin. And as a result, they went into ketoacidosis. The presence of insulin shuts down ketone productions. This is why on a ketogenic diet, if you're mixing and matching your carbohydrates with fat, then you're unlikely to be in ketosis unless you're actually checking that your body has ketones. You can do that with a blood test or urine dipstick. So it's really not avoiding all carbohydrates. The problem with avoiding all carbohydrates is that we actually need carbohydrates to thrive. No, you don't need to eat it to survive, but you do need it to thrive. And the reason is because you need glucose to make the sugar ribose. Now, if you look up ribose, you'll know that it makes ATP. So your energy molecules that you derive from eating either fat or sugar is literally made out of ribose, which is made from glucose. You also need ribose to make DNA, RNA. And if you know anything about biochemistry, you know that that is super important in the middle of your cell to determine what the cell does, how the cell responds to stress, and basically makes you, you. If you don't have energy like ATP, because if you don't have the structure to make ATP, then you can't make ATP no matter how much energy you're eating. And if you don't have DNA or RNA, you're not going to rapidly be able to turn over cells that died in battle, right? We're always surrounded by so much oxidative stress from the pollution that we get in the air to the pollutants we get in our food to just basically UV radiation from the sun. This is why it's super important to always have a constant stream of glucose for your body. Now, if you had that in a drip, drip, drip like we do when we give people IV hydration, well, that's not the ideal form to eat and thrive. So whether you're drip dripping it in your vein directly by a physician, or you're drip dripping it through liquid from drinking sugary drinks, or you're drip dripping it from eating highly refined sugars like table sugar or honey, agave, it's the same process. You're literally giving yourself concentrated sugar, which is very challenging for your body to handle. So instead, a better way to give yourself a constant stream of energy is to give it in the form of complex carbohydrates, but not in the form of processed complex carbohydrates, right? So when we eat bakery items, they are complex carbohydrates, but they are highly processed. It's really important to make your own body do that processing. And that is why eating whole foods is so much more advantageous and healthy to eat than it is to eat highly processed foods. Now, some people need to just completely eliminate all carbohydrates in order to cut down the bad carbs. That may be a viable solution in the short term, but many carnivore advocates actually have changed their minds because they realize it's not a viable solution for the long term.
But there's actually no evidence in the medical literature that fructose as a part of fruit sugar causes us any harm.
Now, if your body needs to be able to turn over cells, right, in order to fight oxidative stress, that means you need a competent immune system. You need to be able to make DNA, RNA, as well as ATP. Then if you don't give your body the equipment to do so, then you can imagine that your ability to recover is so limited. The better way to reduce fatty liver and to reduce your refined carbohydrates, simple sugars, is to eat carbs in a whole plant food form. So let me explain this in more detail. When you're eating whole food, let's say you're eating a blueberry or an apple, most of that whole food is made out of water and fiber. So when you read the label of carbohydrates, it's really important to not just read the label for sugars, but also to read the label for fiber content. Now, if you bought any food from the stores, you'll notice that there is no label when you're buying apples or oranges or cherries or blueberries, right? The labels are only in processed food. When you're eating highly refined processed food, especially when you take that apple and you purify the sugar out, or you take that apple and you dehydrate it, you chop it up, you bake it, you're making an apple pie with that, and then you're adding other ingredients, other highly refined ingredients, not just eating food in individual components. I think that's a problem with our food options. We just have so many things that are chemically produced where they're taking parts and pieces of whole natural foods and gluing it together, manipulating it so it tastes better, but yet it's less healthy. Now, what's even worse than glucose is the metabolism of fructose, which is all over the store shelves in America. Now, I'm not talking about the fruit in fructose. In fact, the whole fruit, not processed fruit, has been known and shown to help with fatty liver, as well as many other liver inflammatory conditions such as hepatitis C. Before the explosion of processed food, fatty liver was only known to be a disease in people who abuse alcohol. And this is because the metabolism of alcohol and fructose end up to be very similar. This is very different than the metabolism of fruit. When you eat fruit, the fructose is actually trapped in fiber and water. And when you have it trapped in fiber and water, it's a slow release of fructose. Your gut microbiome actually can metabolize about 5 grams of fructose in your gut. So you actually never even absorb that fructose. But if you overwhelm your body with high fructose, like high fructose corn syrup or apple juice, because a lot of that is fructose, then you can potentially overwhelm your system by absorbing all that fructose at once. This is why people who eat a lot of fruit, like vegetarians and 7-day Adventists, are not necessarily overweight. The first thing that I saw when I went into a Swiss shop was that everything was laid out differently. In America, we walk through layers of bakery item and junk food when we go into the store. But when you go into a supermarket in Switzerland, the first thing you walk through are fresh fruits and vegetables, which is a different form of carbohydrates than the highly processed bakery junk that we eat in America. Now, the second thing that I noticed in Switzerland is that people walk everywhere. And when they heard that we take a car to just go down a block, they were flabbergasted. It's incredible how you see so many more people walking in other countries than you do in America. And this is why I love to visit other places, because everywhere I go, I don't rent a car. I try to take public transportation if it's too far, and everywhere else, I have to walk. The way to go about exercise is to build it into your daily routine. When you exercise in a gym, you have to make time to go there, right? And it's really hard to make time. If you make it where it's a part of your daily routine, then you're exercising without even knowing that you're exercising. If you want to learn more ideas about how to reverse fatty liver, watch the next video.